what are all the things I do as a full-time writing instructor. A huge part of my teaching practice is reflection. In an age of AI, my students are completely different than the students I first started teaching. The way we write, the way we think about writing, the way we approach writing, and so the way I approach teaching writing is constantly changing. Hello and welcome to a new vlog. Welcome if you're new here. Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a full-time university writing instructor and a part-time content creator and indie author. Welcome back if you're one of my lovely returning friends. It is great to have you all here. Welcome to a day in the life of me as a full-time writing instructor. We've done some teaching focused vlogs, but I was thinking the other day that I don't think I've ever sat down and really talked through what exactly that means when I say I'm a full-time university writing instructor. What does my title mean, instructor, within the larger university landscape? What does my job entail? What are all the things I do as a full-time writing instructor? Because it's mostly grading, but it's not all grading. So yeah, I just thought it might be fun while I'm kind of having a day at home. It's a work from home day. So I guess just to start us off, what do I mean by instructor? What is my title? So my title is instructor. Within the university system, at least here in the US, at least here at my university, there are staff, administrators, and faculty are the three main groups of employees. And then within faculty, there are tenure track and non-tenure track. Non-tenure track is also sometimes referred to as career faculty. And then within tenure track, you've also then got tenured. People who are no longer on the track, they are tenured. That's not me. I'm over on the other side. So I am a non-tenure track faculty member, have been since finishing my PhD in writing rhetorics and literacies in 2018. Took me a second. It's been a while. It's been a minute now since I graduated. And yeah, that's kind of what prompted this whole idea. Is I've been doing this job now for, this is the end of my 7th year, I think, if I could do math. I was an English major, not a math major. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the end of my 7th year. So it's been a while and I've not really talked about what it is that I do. So my contract is 100% teaching. So this differs from tenure track and tenured faculty who have both a service component and a research component. For me, as an instructor, I'm on a 5-5. So I teach 5 classes in the fall and 5 classes in the spring, and I don't do any service or any research. I can if I want. I can do research if I want, but I am hired to be a teacher. So that is one of the reasons why I don't really do my academic research anymore. It's not the only reason, and it's not even the biggest reason, but it is a reason. I might do a video at some point on why I don't do my research, but a lot of it just comes from burnout and very boring reasons. So yeah, I'm on a 5-5. Now, I am a slight exception to the non-service rule in that I am one of 7 instructors in my department who have a 1-year small service component to my contract, and I am serving on a committee of sorts. It's not technically a committee. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, and that's my basic situation. But what does that mean, teaching 5-5? What kinds of classes do I teach? All of that stuff. That's what I want to kind of dive in. And what do I do beyond teaching? Because even with a 100% teaching contract, teaching is not the only thing I do. I feel like sometimes it's easy to think that teachers just go stand up in front of the classroom, teach a class, and then that's it, or then they just grade. But I do a lot more than just teach and grade. Teaching, class time teaching and grading, are the bulk of my workload each week, but they're not the only things I do. So I'm going to be doing a lot of different things today. On today's agenda, I do have a lot of grading to do. I have a lot of email to do. I have a lot of little various teaching admin bits. So when I say I do teaching, I've got teaching admin tasks. What does that mean? We'll talk about those throughout the day. I have a meeting later this afternoon on Zoom, so I will be doing that. I've got some notes to review ahead of that meeting. So yeah, it's just kind of a little bit of everything today. So yeah, if you've ever been curious and wondered like what exactly I do as a teacher, or if you are someone nearing the end of your PhD and you are going on the job market, if you are seeing positions opening up for instructors or equivalent positions at other universities, and you kind of wonder what exactly does the job entail, keep watching. So I'm gonna get started. It is just about 9 o'clock. It is 8:52. So I'm gonna get my email opened up. Typically, I always start my day with email, just going through, deleting all the kind of general newsletters and emails that don't really pertain to me, but that I just get sent because I'm an employee at the university. There's always stuff from like textbook publishers and things that I open and just glance over really quick and then delete. So I like to start the day by clearing out my email of everything that does not require any action to be taken from me, so that I can then see what is left and what does need action. So I'm going to do that, probably get some coffee in a little bit, and probably then do some grading and try to get some grading done, try to make some progress on grading before I break for lunch in a little while. So yeah, welcome to the vlog, and just hang out with me today, spend a day with me, a day in my life as a full-time writing instructor. Okay, it is now later in the morning. I need a break. I need to not look at the computer screen for a little bit. So yeah, I have been doing email, I have been doing some grading, I have started going through my attendance record and my grade sheet for the 3 classes I've been teaching, because we are now at the midway point of the semester, essentially, just a little bit past, and this is a good time to do academic status reports. So I've just gotten an email from the vice provost reminding us that this is a good time to do those. So I'm going to try to get some of that admin done today and tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to get everything done today. I have also, I can cross it off from my planner, I have also gone through the discussion board for the 2 online classes that just started. I have 2 B session classes. So I've kind of explained this before in previous vlogs, but basically my university has 3 different sessions that you can take classes in. There is C session, which is the full 16 week long semester, and then we have A and B sessions, which are the first half and the second half of the full semester. So they're half semester long. So it's a lot, it's very fast paced. So I have 2 business writing classes that are in B session that have just started on Monday. Because it's B session, it is now Thursday and they are already turning in their rough drafts. Their rough draft of their first project is due tomorrow, and then their final draft will be due on Tuesday. So I've had some of those come in. I have graded those a little bit early, or graded those. I'm at the point of the semester now, so I guess just to catch you up if this is your first video, I am teaching 5 classes. I have 3 C sessions, so full semester length, English 101 classes, so first year composition, the first half of first year composition. I've got 3 of those that are hybrid classes, so we meet in person once a week and then the rest of their work is done online. I have now picked up 2 fully online business writing English 302 classes. So that is my teaching assignment for this semester. The downside of teaching, I don't mind teaching a session. I prefer teaching A sessions to B sessions, or having an A and a B so that they kind of balance each other out. When you're teaching an A or a B, your workload is double what it would normally be, because you're grading 2 weeks worth of material every week because of the condensed format. So when you're teaching an A session, I don't know, the semester starts off really hard and then it gets easier halfway through, kind of a thing. So I have been used to teaching 3 classes so far this semester. That's all I've been teaching. Now I'm teaching the full 5, but because these 2 are in the condensed format, it almost feels like I'm teaching 7, because each of these extra, the 4th and 5th class, each feel almost like they're 2 classes worth because they're so condensed. So the grading volume has massively ticked upward, and I'm trying not to drown. So basically, I'm at the point now in the semester with teaching a B session, 2 B sessions like this, where I'm grading on a rolling basis. I'm not waiting until like everything has been turned in for an assignment and then grading it. If 1 or 2 rough drafts are being turned in, I'm grading those as they're being turned in. It is the only way I'm going to survive the rest of the semester. So the nice thing about business writing is they are slightly more advanced students. They are typically no less than sophomores. You can't take it as a freshman. I've only had a few freshmen, so it's very special circumstances. It's about the number of credits that you already have before you can take business writing. So some of them are sophomores, most of them are juniors, some of them are seniors. So that's 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year of their time here. So a lot of them are that junior to senior range. They've already taken a bunch of classes. They're not new to the university. They are business students. So the 302 class is only for business majors, whereas there is another class that is business writing but for non-business majors. So I'm teaching the one for business majors, and our business school is very competitive, so they're pretty good students. And a lot of them, like when I was reading their discussion boards, some of them are business law majors, some of them are other different business majors, but that will require a lot of writing. So even though it's a required class, a good portion of them seem to be coming in with the mindset already of like, they know they need this class. They know this class is going to be useful and helpful to them. And it's amazing the difference that makes, but it does make a huge difference compared to my English 101 students, my first year comp students, who are a variety of majors, some of which they think writing isn't going to be as important. And there's a lot more of that mental battle of trying to get them to understand that I'm not just teaching them writing skills, I'm teaching them really valuable life skills. They never want to see it that way, but I really am. That is how I view it as a teacher of rhetoric specifically, and my PhD is in rhetoric. That's what I focus on the most. I teach writing, but I teach that through a rhetorical perspective. So the way that I teach writing is more about how can you achieve a certain purpose with a particular audience, and figuring out who are you writing that document to, or who are you writing it for, and what are you trying to achieve with that document. That's easier to get them to understand in business writing, where they're writing a resume and an application letter to a hiring manager for the purpose of getting a job. That is a very clearly understood audience and purpose. In first year comp, when they're writing a rhetorical analysis and I am their main audience, it's a little bit harder to get them to understand. It's a bit more abstract how it connects and how it relates. So yeah, it's the constant battle. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of what I've been doing today. It's so far been a lot of email, discussion boards, some grading, just trying to get ahead on the grading and stay ahead on the grading. But I think that kind of transitions us into a conversation of like, what do I do? What exactly do I do as a writing instructor, and what is a typical week like for me? The week is kind of the same. It varies by semester, but my schedule will kind of then stay the same for that whole semester. Sometimes I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays, other times I teach only on Tuesdays or only on Thursday. It depends on my schedule, so that will vary from one semester to the next. This semester, just as an example, is I work from home on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and I teach on campus on Tuesdays. And then depending on if it's a work from home day or a work on campus day, that then kind of determines what I do. You would think that being a teacher, that teaching would be the majority of my job duty, my job duties, and it is, but teaching in the classroom is actually probably the smallest portion of how I spend my weeks. So the main things that I'm doing are, I do teach. I go to campus, like I said, once or twice a week, and I teach usually anywhere 3 to 4 classes in person, and then each semester I will usually have 1 to 2 classes that are fully online. And I really like that. That's what I request, so I am allowed to request certain things for my schedule. Ultimately, it's down to whatever is needed, but we are allowed to kind of give our preferences. So my preference is to have a mix of hybrid and fully online. So in addition to going and teaching on campus, I also have office hours. I have to have 4 office hours or 4 hours of office hours every week. 2 of those hours, or half of our time essentially, has to be done in our physical official office space on campus. The other half of our time can be in the place of our choosing. So I choose to do them at home on Zoom, but I tend to have more students come to my Zoom office hours on my work from home day than that will come in person. So office hours are a huge part. I love office hours. They're usually pretty quiet. I usually get a fair amount of work done, especially during my office hours here at home. I will just have some lo-fi music playing, and I have Zoom open on one screen and my other work open on my external monitor, and so I'm just grading papers and stuff. And I always tell students, like, please come to office hours. You are literally not interrupting me. You're just providing a probably much appreciated break from grading papers. Grading, that is the other thing I do a lot of. That is probably how I spend the majority of my time. Grading is probably the most time intensive part of my week, and it varies depending on what is due that week. So like this week I'm currently grading final drafts of their second major writing project. Those are going to take me a bit longer. I'm doing fewer assignments per day, but they're taking me a longer amount of time per assignment. And I do try to get the final drafts of major projects turned around within a week or 2 at the most. A week is kind of my preference. So like these were turned in on Tuesday. I'm really trying to get the majority of them done by tomorrow. All of my grading is done online, so grading is a lot of me just scrolling and clicking and occasionally writing things in, typing in numbers into Canvas and writing things down in my physical grade sheets, but most of it is done online. But all of the actual like reading of the paper and grading is done online, so it's all digital, it's all right on a screen. Part of me misses the old days when I first started teaching, which wasn't that long ago, but when I first started teaching at the university back in 2013, I did still collect papers, physical, hard copy, and I would grade them with a pen and I would mark things on it. And part of me misses that. I don't miss having to carry huge stacks of folders of papers around campus, and it definitely saves time not having to hand them all back in class, but I do miss feeling like the paper and like reading the physical essay. Online definitely reduces some of the excuses of my printer wasn't working, or I didn't have credit at the library to print it off, or whatever excuse they would use. But now the excuse if something isn't turned in is, Canvas was glitching, and it does, so it's hard to know when they're making that up versus when it actually was glitching. Sometimes students will email me their paper to as proof, like I'm emailing it to you to prove that it's done, but Canvas won't let me upload it. So So there are downsides of digital grading. I can still like mark and annotate and things on Canvas, but it's not the same as like taking a pen to paper. I never used a red pen though. I think I used to use like purple or sometimes pink. Red just felt too violent, especially when students really didn't do well on their essays. But I do miss that. And I would sometimes like use stickers and stuff. So part of me wishes I could go back to the old-fashioned way of doing that. Other than teaching and office hours and grading, which are kind of the most like student-focused things, email, that is also student-focused. And these are kind of, I'm kind of ranking, and not, I didn't mean to like rank these, but these are kind of in order of not just how much time I spend, but also in terms of what directly impacts the students. So teaching directly impacts the students. Office hours are there specifically for the students. It's the only reason I hold them. It's the only reason we're required to hold them is for the students. Grading, I'm reading their papers and giving them feedback. So all of that is for the students. I also get a ton of emails. Students email me all the time for questions and problems, big and small. Sometimes the problems just feel so big, it's like, I don't want to be the adult in the room who's responsible for this. And I'm, you know, scrambling. It's why I do like the environment that I work in. There is always an administrator or someone that I can reach out to ask questions or to ask for assistance. There are offices on campus that are specifically there to support students. So when someone is going through something really serious, I don't just have to watch that student struggle. I have offices that I can refer them to get really specific attention and help. Then other times the problem is just so minor, it's like, I can't believe you're putting this in an email, but it's okay, you're fine. Sometimes my students, I can just tell there's a certain, the level of just general anxiety the average undergraduate student deals with has definitely gone up over the years, and the things that they seem to fixate on and get really anxious about and worry about as far as policies and late papers and things like that, it's a lot. And so I do try to have a lot of compassion and empathy for my students and a lot of patience for them. And there are definitely times where I kind of just silently scream here at my desk, and then I take a deep breath, and then I try to put myself in their shoes, and I remember how big and scary the university felt when I was an undergrad, because I went to undergrad. Actually, I did an undergraduate, a master's, and a PhD all at the same university where I teach, all at ASU. So I get it. It's big, it's huge, it's scary, and when you're a freshman, when you're a first-year student, even in your second semester, it can all feel a bit too much. It's one of the reasons why I like teaching first-year comp, because I do like working with freshmen, and I do feel like I'm the type of teacher and the type of personality that works well with this type of student and with students who are still struggling to find their place and still struggling to feel comfortable within the university environment. And I'm not super harsh, I'm not super authoritarian, that's not my style. Yeah, so there's a lot of emails. In email, I also will get a lot of drafts. For the students who do want my feedback, I just make them send it to me separately via email as a Google Doc, and then I go in and I light it up with track changes and comments and suggestions and all the things that need to be strengthened in order to get the highest score possible. So as in that time between a rough draft being due and a final draft being due, I do get some of those drafts that need to be reviewed. So that comes in via email, but that I think I view as a separate thing and takes a good chunk of time. And my business writing students especially usually take advantage of that policy and having me review their drafts. So I know the amount of drafts I'm reviewing via email each week is about to skyrocket. So that's a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's all good. It's all fine. So other than teaching, office hours, grading, email, and draft reviews, what do? I attend department meetings every month. I attend other occasional meetings. Meetings is probably the smallest part of my week, my month. I sometimes will have a week where I have no meetings at all, and then other weeks where I'll have one or two, and that's fine. I do conferences with my students, one-on-one conferences, a couple times a semester. Students really enjoy conferences. I do as well. They are very long weeks. but they are very productive weeks, being able to talk to students one-on-one and answer their questions individually. So I do that. Then there's all the like miscellaneous admin. So that can be doing things like academic status reports, that can be interacting with the athletic directors to do grade checks for any athletes who are in my class. Every semester I have at least a few athletes. I attend larger faculty meetings and kind of end of semester social things, social gatherings with the department. So those are always fun. There's usually free books and free food. Those are usually kind of the highlights of the start of the semester and the end of the semester. There's usually one at the very beginning and one at the very end, and they're a nice way to kind of bookend the whole semester. The last thing that I do that is worth talking about is lesson planning and preparing for classes, but I feel like that is deserving of its own segment. I've already been talking for too long in this one, so I'm probably gonna go get myself some coffee and get back to work because I've been taking too long of a break. So I'm gonna get back to work, and in a little bit, when I'm ready for a break again, we can talk about lesson planning and prepping and how I lesson plan and how I change things and refresh things and kind of my approach to lesson planning and teaching in general. Later in the afternoon. Where are we at? I have just finished a meeting that I had, so my meeting is done for the day, so that's good. I am now in kind of the final stretch of my day before I can stop and relax for the evening. So it is 2 o'clock, so I've got a few hours left of work. I'm gonna try to get the status reports for my students done. I've got one more class to go through, and then I can go online and just fill them all out. Then I am going to switch to grading and try to get some more final drafts of their second essays done. I did have lunch, worked here at my desk. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I actually take a proper lunch break. It kind of depends on my schedule, where I'm at in the week. Like, I'm better about taking breaks on Monday when I have the whole week stretching out in front of me, whereas by Thursday and Friday I can still see how much work is left that I really want to get done before the weekend. And so then it's, can I take a break? If I hadn't had this meeting, then I probably would have taken a break, but since I knew I was not going to be able to do any grading for an hour during this meeting, then I figured I'll just work during my lunch break. So yeah, so I don't always eat at my desk, but I do occasionally. So lesson planning and course prep and things like that. Lesson planning, and then there's class prep and there's course prep. So lesson planning and class prep is kind of the same thing, and then course prep is a little bit different. So at the start of each semester, or kind of at the end of one semester and looking forward to the next semester, is when I do the course prep. Like right now, I'm partway through the spring semester, but in the spring semester, I don't really do that much course prep for the fall because technically my schedule could change over the summer. Right now for the fall, my classes are all full, so I think I'm good. I will probably, throughout the rest of this semester, start tweaking things in my developmental shell for Canvas. So I have a kind of developmental, or we call it a sandbox course, where I can add things, delete things, upload things, just design things however I want. And then when it's closer to the semester, I can then make a copy from that sandbox course, to the course I'm actually going to teach. So I will get everything kind of arranged in my developmental shell and then make however many copies of that as I need for each individual class I'm going to use that shell for. That way when I do make changes, I'm just making those changes in one place, not in 3 or 4 or 5 different Canvas shells. So preparing for a fall semester, I'll do a little bit of work towards the end of the spring semester. Basically, if there's any day where by like 3 o'clock I'm caught up on grading, I'm caught up on email, and I've got a little bit of time, or if it's like 4:30 and I still have 30 minutes left that I can spend on teaching work, I'll spend that bit of extra time working on planning and prepping for the next semester and doing some of that longer term planning and course prep. In a spring semester, I'll do a little bit of that work at the end of the spring semester, kind of starting about now. It's a little bit difficult in that I'm just starting to teach 302 because I'm just starting to teach my business writing class for this semester, so I can really only go based on what the last semester was like to plan for business writing in the fall, but there will be things that come out of these 2B session classes that I'm teaching that I'll know I want to change for the fall. So I'll change what I can, I'll update what I can, and then throughout teaching B session, as there's things that come up in how the Canvas course is running, especially for an online class, I'll make notes of those to change once the semester is done. Also for the fall, I'm teaching an A and a B. I have taught A and B session for this particular class before, but not for quite a few years. I think 2019 was the last time I taught business writing fully in person in an A and a B. So I have an old syllabus that I can pull up. I have an old version of the Canvas shell, so I will probably start prepping those because that's going to be a little bit different from how I teach it online. So anything that I can do in advance of a semester, I do. But then there will be some things that I wait until closer to August to be able to do. So like we usually start somewhere in mid-August, so I'm usually kind of coming off of summer break and getting back into teacher mode around that first week of August, and that's when I'll then look through my notes and start doing that kind of final course prep. In a fall semester, there's a lot less time in between, so there's a lot more pressure on me in the fall to prep for the spring semester. So I do spend, starting no later than halfway through the fall semester is kind of when our class schedule for the spring will be finalized, and that is when I will start playing in the developmental shell for whatever I'm being assigned for the spring. And then usually by the time I'm going on winter break, the majority of my course prep is done and my syllabus is done, and I'm really just down to any little like final little fiddly bits to get ready. And then the spring semester usually starts somewhere around the 1st to 2nd week of January. Like we started like mid-January this year, and so kind of the 2nd or 3rd of January is when I kind of come off winter break and am mentally getting back into teaching mode and doing all the final prep. So that's kind of course prep, and that does take a not insignificant amount of time. I reuse as much as I can, but I'm learning from what I teach and from the students that I teach every semester. And so every semester I'm learning, oh, this works, this doesn't work, this could work better. I'll make those little changes. So I don't really do like a massive overhaul every semester of all of my materials. It's more every semester I'm doing little tweaks. And so from one semester to the next, you don't really notice that big of a difference between my assignment sheets and how I work through the big essay projects, all the different like little invention assignments and worksheets and things. From one semester to the next, those don't really change. But over the course of like 2 or 3 or more years, it's very different, and there will be things that are almost completely unrecognizable or things that are completely new because I realized there was a problem with something and I found a unique solution for it and created some new material to solve that problem. I'd say every few years things have essentially had a massive overhaul from how they were originally. A huge part of my teaching practice is reflection. I teach reflection. I teach my students to have a very reflective approach to their work and to their writing, and I have a very reflective approach to my teaching. So I'm always, as positive and negative, I'm always second guessing myself. I'm very hypercritical of myself, and this is both a strength and a weakness in some ways. I can be too critical of myself, and I can sometimes be a little hyper aware of things that I'm doing, and I can second guess and doubt myself. So I have to be very mindful of that. But I am very reflective, so I'm always kind of looking at my student evaluations and looking to see what they say worked or didn't work in a semester. At the end of each year, I'm kind of looking at what students felt about each class overall, but also about my teaching overall. So what are things that I'm hearing from both my first year comp students, but also from my business writing students about me as a teacher that I can learn from and grow. I always ask them for constructive criticism. I tell them, don't be afraid to tell me what I can do better, just be kind about it. So I'm very fortunate that I get pretty good and constructive evals. It's not all nice, it's not all the best things to hear. There is criticism in there, but it is usually 95% of it is usually very helpful and very constructive, and I really appreciate that, because then that stuff I can take on board and use to change and make my classes better for the future. So I do have a very reflective approach to teaching, and I am constantly looking back at my materials and looking back at how things went in a week, in a month, in a or B session, or in a whole C session at the end of the semester. What worked, what didn't, what felt really good for me, what didn't feel so great, and learning from those things, what can I change to continue the things that I really enjoy and solve some of the problems that came up throughout the semester. So that then impacts my day-to-day, week-to-week lesson planning. So I have it right here. I'm very old school, so I have a lesson plan notebook. This notebook just has all of my lesson plans kind of written out. Some of them are more detailed than others. So like this week, we were just introducing a new project. So it's just things like introduce the concept essay, introduce the first assignment sheet, and then the majority of the materials is in those assignment sheets and those handouts. The library lecture, so I don't have my lecture notes in here. The lecture notes are all in the lecture slides, which are on Canvas. So I will have everything written out, but I keep these notebooks, and so last semester is at the start of this notebook. So each week this semester, I can look back to see what I was doing in this class or in a similar class last semester. I'm now at a point where I can no longer do that, because the third project is different from what the third project was last semester. But there's still going to be some things that I am repurposing, and so I'll still look back at old lesson plans for inspiration. And if you look back through my other teaching notebooks, because I've got a few of them. Like this is my 302 one, so I'll be looking at this. This will probably have, I'm glad I pulled this out. This might have when I did the A and B. So I'm pretty sure I just found it. That's convenient. So this is like, it's been 5 years since I've taught it in person as an A or B. I will use this notebook as my guide for the lesson plans, but a lot of this is going to change. But if you look through these notebooks, you can kind of see there's like sticky notes and other notes scribbled in the margins of like things that changed and things that didn't quite go to plan, and like notes to myself for the future. So when I'm planning a class or when I'm coming back to teach a class after I haven't taught it for a while, I like to be able to look through these notes and be able to see how things went in the past, and again, learn from that. So like weekly lesson planning, I will use the notebooks, look at my lesson plan from the last time I taught the class, but then there's always going to be things that change and work a little bit differently for the new semester. So I'd say lesson planning and course prep doesn't take me an unreasonable amount of time because I am like trying to work smarter, not harder, and repurpose things. But that reflection process of thinking through how things went the last time and looking through my notes and then coming up with ideas for how to improve things, that is what kind of takes time. So some lessons, they work and I don't need to change them. And then other lessons, I'm like, ooh, that really didn't work the last time I taught it. And so flexibility is a huge, huge part of it. I'd say the three big things that really drive me in my lesson planning and my course prep are reflection, reflecting back on the previous semester or the previous class or whatever and how it went, and using constructive criticism and using my own kind of reflection to improve the next. The second thing is innovation. My university is huge on innovation. It's one of our big buzzwords, but for a reason. It is a huge part of kind of our core foundation, and we are built on innovation and being as innovative as possible. You can be innovative in a lot of different ways, but I'm definitely trying to always figure out, as I'm growing and changing, as my students are growing and changing, how can I keep adapting and changing and innovating in my lesson plans that still feels right for me and feels representative of me as a teacher and still is in alignment with my teaching philosophy, but is also innovating and adapting and changing with the changing student population. I can't keep teaching these classes the same way that I started teaching them more than 10 years ago when I first started as a graduate teaching assistant. The students are completely different. Post-COVID, in an age of AI, my students are completely different than the students I first started teaching. And so I'm changing as a teacher, but not quite as quickly, but my teaching methods still need to grow and evolve and adapt. And so the third thing I think is adaptability and flexibility, and being able to adapt in the moment, but also adapt over the course of a semester and adapt from one semester to the next as things continue to change. Because teaching, even teaching English, something that you would think is relatively stable, it's not, especially with AI. The way we write, the way we think about writing, the way we approach writing, and so the way I approach teaching writing is constantly changing. So my lesson plans and my course prep has to constantly change as well. So yeah, that's lesson planning, but I need to get back to grading. I'm gonna do a little bit more grading, a little bit of probably some future course prep just to feel like I'm getting ahead. I need to do those status reports. Then at 5 o'clock, I'm gonna completely collapse. Okay, I am getting so tired. I don't think I'm gonna get much editing done. So quick writing editing update for my regular viewers who are following my progress and all of that. I'm still working on the Scrivener read through. I'm only up to, I think, chapter 7. I've been doing 1 or 2 a day so far this week. I did do 1 this morning before going for my hike, so that's good. That might be the only one I do today. I'm just tired. It is 4:19. I have not gotten as much grading done today as I would have liked, but that's okay. I think I can still get a lot done tomorrow, so I'll just do a big push tomorrow. I've done a lot of other little things that I won't have to do tomorrow, so I think tomorrow can just be a really big kind of sit down, get cozy, and just plow through the grading. Sometimes I will just try to have a day where I plow through all the non-grading type tasks I have, and then have another day where it's just grading that I'm focusing on, and I don't bounce back and forth, and I take breaks every hour or so. So like I'll grade for an hour and then take a break for like 20 minutes and then do another grading for another hour and then take another break. And that just was going to be too difficult today with my meeting and everything else. I think because I was talking about it earlier and because I found my lesson plan notebook, I think I am going to start getting slightly ahead. Spring semester looking to the fall, I don't normally do a ton of class prep, but usually I'm not teaching a class that's relatively new to me. Normally I'm just updating a class from the previous semester, whereas I do think I want to dig out my old 302 in-person AB syllabus and start working on the session A syllabus. I can kind of start looking at the schedule and just reminding myself of where that's at and things like that. And I want to open up the Canvas shell from the last time I taught it in an A or B and just take a look at how that Canvas shell was set up. I want to look at those things today because that will tell me how much work they're both going to take, and then I'll know if or when or how much I need to do a little bit later this semester. So that's what I'm going to work on, I think, for the last 30 minutes or so of today. But otherwise, today's been pretty productive. Talking to you all has also helped me thinking about myself as a teacher. One of the things that we have to do every year is we do an annual review of ourselves. We do like an annual evaluation, a performance evaluation for ourselves, and submit that to the department. And there's other times where we have to do something similar. And so, as I was saying earlier, a huge part of my teaching practice and teaching philosophy is to be very reflective and to foster a certain amount of self-awareness of myself as a teacher, and to be very self-reflective of my teaching, to be open to comments and criticism as long as it is kindly and constructively given by my students and by peers who might come and observe me, talking to my colleagues and hearing how they're running their classes and what kinds of assignments they're doing. We are constantly bouncing ideas off of each other and talking to one another. One of the things I like about my department, we don't have a set curriculum. We don't have a standardized syllabus for each course. We have kind of big picture goals and outcomes for each class that we can teach. And those goals and outcomes are very specific, but we can accomplish those goals and outcomes in a variety of ways. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's really interesting to hear how other teachers are fostering rhetorical awareness or critical thinking skills or critical reading or document design, how they are teaching audience awareness and audience and purpose and things like that. Talking to my colleagues, we're all very generous, and that is very encouraged. Ultimately, all of our IP, essentially, all of our intellectual property as teachers that we do in the service of our job is owned by the university. So no one's precious about their materials. We all share freely. It's all essentially community property owned by the university. So there are certain exemptions to that. If a teacher writes a textbook or something like that, then that's theirs, and that's a little bit different. So yeah, no one is like hiding their best ideas. We're all sharing, and it's really nice. It's been that way the entire time I've been teaching here, and it really creates and fosters that sense of community and sharing and exchange of knowledge and expertise. And we teach the same classes because in the writing program that I teach in, there's only so many classes we offer, and we all pretty much teach the same ones. I have a number of colleagues I can go to say, hey, I'm kind of bored of my writing project 3 in English 101, which is usually some sort of research project. So I can ask, what's your research project? What's your project 3 in 101? Or what's your introductory project in English 102? And get some different ideas. And sometimes hearing what other people are doing, you like bits from this person's 101 project 1 and from this person's 101 project 1, and so you kind of fuse some of them together. There's a lot of Frankensteining, I feel, that goes around. Sharing doesn't mean you use it in exactly the same way, but by sharing what everyone is doing, it spurs new ideas and just gives you a fresh look at how you can teach those classes. So yeah, it would be good for me to start looking at my materials for teaching 302 in an A or a B session and just jog my memory, remind myself what I'm doing, and start to see if there's anything that I want to like reach out to my friends who teach 302 and just try to remind myself, looking through my notes, if there were any issues teaching it in that format. I'm already starting to have some ideas, so I probably should like create a notes app on my computer and just start jotting those things down. So yeah, anyway, that's a bit of a ramble about all of that. That's where I'm at today. So I've got some relaxing lo-fi music playing on YouTube on my personal laptop. I've got 3 screens in front of me right now. Enough chatting, time to get planning and prepping. End of the day, and I am really fighting the urge to make myself do one more chapter in my Scrivener read through, but I am just going to cross out the 2 and write in a 1 and cross it off on my planner. It's done. I am done. I'm done for the day. But I have dug out my old syllabus. I save everything. I was looking through this Google Doc or this Google Drive folder at all of my old materials. I still have syllabi going back to like 2013. I'm sure I have the first syllabus I ever wrote. And on my personal laptop, I have all the old syllabi from the theater classes and stuff that I have taught at the local community colleges, because that's where I started teaching. So after my first master's degree down at U of A, I came back up to Phoenix, and the first teaching academic type job that I got was teaching at the community colleges. So I had a master's in film studies, but because my undergraduate was in theater, I had enough theater credits that I was allowed to teach theater classes. So I started teaching modern drama, which is like a theater history class. So that didn't feel too different for me. It was still academic enough that it wasn't that big of a jump. But then I also taught an acting 1 class and a theater makeup class. I have taught an intro to cinema, which I really loved teaching that. I love film history. If things had worked out differently, that had been the plan, was to move back up here and teach film classes at a community college. And unfortunately, the 2008 recession happened and there were no community college teaching jobs available. And when they did start hiring again, it was all part-time and it wasn't for as many of those types of classes. So it was really kind of sad, but that's what then eventually prompted me to go back and study English, and now being a writing instructor. So it all kind of worked out. But yeah, I started teaching theater. I think of all those classes, I did really enjoy teaching acting. It was really fun. I mean, that's just a fun class to teach. But I think the theater history class, the modern drama class, and theater appreciation, that was another class I taught. It was just like a general, very, very basic intro to theater studies. I loved that class. I loved teaching that so much. It was just so much fun because we did like a lesson, we did like a unit on costume design and set design and lighting and sound design, and we did theater history, and we did a unit on acting and performance style. So it really covered the range, and it was just so much fun. So that's how I kind of cut my teeth on teaching, and those were the first classes that were like mine to teach, that I wasn't like just helping another teacher or grading for another teacher. Those were like my classes 100%, and I loved them. But then I started my PhD and I started teaching writing, and I realized I really love teaching writing. It's definitely changing. Like, it is definitely a challenge post-COVID, and in the age of AI, it's a very different landscape now, and I'm having to evolve along with it. Like, I'm having to change my approach to teaching, my perspective on teaching, my perspective on teaching writing, and it's not easy. But no job really stays the same. I feel like in some ways teaching is, it can feel like, I think I was saying this earlier, it can feel like teaching writing is a very stable and steady thing, and it doesn't really change. What we're teaching doesn't really change. And there are elements of it that don't change. Rhetoric and the basics of rhetoric have been around since ancient Greece. Like Aristotle and Socrates and Plato and all of these guys are the ones who kind of really formalized rhetoric as a field of study and as a persuasive art. So how we teach rhetoric, or the basics and fundamentals of rhetoric that we teach, those have not changed in thousands of years. But what has changed are the students and the technology available to them. And so the way that we teach these fundamentals and foundations of writing and rhetoric and communication, that does have to change. And it changes a lot faster than it used to, because technology is changing faster than it used to. It just feels like every semester practically I'm having to really rethink how I'm doing it, and how to make sure that I'm keeping the student at the center of that, and making sure that they feel that it is very student focused, student centered, and student led. So yeah, anyway, I could talk about this forever, and I don't usually on here. So this has been fun for me. I hope this hasn't been too boring. I just kind of had the realization that I don't think I've ever really kind of talked about all of this quite this specifically, and maybe it's time I finally have. Like 9 years on YouTube, you know, just about 9 years as of April 1st, which is coming up very soon. I'll have been on here for 9 years, and the fact that I have been teaching full-time now for 7-ish years, 6-ish, 7-ish years, and I haven't really talked about all of this. It was time. So little something different, little something new that I haven't done before. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. I would really appreciate that. Say hi in the comments. Leave me some kind of teaching or teacher related emojis to let me know which one of you lovely people have made it all the way to the end of this vlog. In the comments, you can let me know if there was anything in here that really stood out and was interesting to you. If you are a teacher, I'd love to know more about what you teach, where you teach, or what kinds of classes or students you tend to work with. What is your favorite part about teaching? For me, it is definitely working with the students. The students are the best part. If you're not a teacher, I would love to hear about your favorite teacher that you have ever had. If you have a way of reaching out to a former teacher and just letting them know that however many years later you're still thinking of them, they will appreciate that. Do it. Send that email, send that letter, whatever. It just makes my day when someone reaches out and says that however many years later they're still thinking of something they learned in my class. So yeah, let me know who your favorite teacher was. I would like to know. So I will see you all very soon in the next vlog. Thank you very much for watching this one. Bye!